Joining me now is the man himself, White House Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, Peter Navarro. Peter, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, Maria. Great to be with you.
I know you've got another op-ed coming out soon this week on the Russia collusion and this last 10 years of scandals. But let's start with India and their, what you say, funding Putin's war machine. How are they doing it, Peter?
There's a general perception that somehow India needs Russian oil to basically power its domestic economy, but that's just wrong. If you go back to when Russia invaded Ukraine back in February of 2022, India didn't buy virtually any Indian oil, almost zip. I mean, it's like 1%, right? So Russia invades, and then you immediately see this surge of oil purchased by India. So you ask yourself what's going on. And what's going on is the Russian refiners got in bed with the Indian refiners. Russia offers these refiners a steep discount on the crude, and they partner with the Indian refiners, and then they sell the refined products at premium prices to Africa, Asia, and Europe, and that funds the war machine. And so it's like over 1 million barrels a day of Russian oil are sent back to fund the war machine. Now think about that. So what that means is that we wind up having to pay more. Europe has to pay more for defense. The U.S. have to send Ukraine more, and it's because of the Indian profiteering. And the big subtext here, Maria, is the fact that India is the Maharaja of tariffs, got highest tariffs in the world, non-tariff barriers. So think about what India is doing to the United States, right? It steals our jobs. It slows down our growth with their unfair trade practices. Okay, so we take a hit there. And then when it gets into this profiteering scheme with Russia to send oil to basically the Kremlin laundromat for their crude oil, basically it forces U.S. taxpayers to pay more to help Ukraine in the war. So it's just insanity. Look, there's a lot of roads that run to peace, and President Donald J. Trump is the most incredible peace president we've ever seen. One of those roads runs right through New Delhi, and India needs to stand up here for the world, for democracy. It's the biggest democracy in the world by the amount of people, and it's basically in bed with the Russians, and that's not conducive to peace. If India tomorrow stopped buying Russian oil, that would go a long way towards getting Putin to the ultimate yes that we need, and that Donald Trump and his that thing, Maria, I was all 4 years in the White House first term. I've never seen anything like what President Trump did with those European leaders, putting them together with Zelensky and talking about how to proceed forward. That is just, I mean, that will go down in history for the ages.
But, I mean, look, Peter, it doesn't look like India is going to stop, right? I mean, you're right. The meeting was unprecedented. And finally, we're actually having the beginnings of a conversation to end this war after 4 years of no efforts, it appears. But it doesn't look, I mean, these secondary sanctions is an interesting idea. Isolate Russia until they stop. But India's not on board.
Well, let's see what happens, as the boss says, with India. What I hope I've done with the Financial Times article is basically sensitize the world that this Indian argument that somehow they need it to keep the heat on or the air conditioning on, it's just wrong. They don't need that oil. Full stop. They don't need that oil. It's just the Russian refiners are partnering with the Indian refiners. They don't create a lot of jobs. They just profiteer. So that's wrong, as is the high tariffs and non-tariff barriers and Indian charges. I mean, look, they can keep doing what they're doing, but Donald Trump is going to keep doing what he's doing, and that's going to mean the high tariffs to stop them from selling Russian oil, buying Russian oil, and high tariffs to get their trade barriers down.
Let me move on. I have a couple of other things to talk to you
Sure.
about in terms of these 232 tariffs that we're talking about this morning. The U.S. expanding the 50% steel and aluminum tariffs onto more than 400 products, including wind turbines, cranes, appliances, EV parts, other heavy equipment. The Commerce Department calling it a crackdown on loopholes, saying that these higher tariffs will revitalize the American steel and aluminum industry. I know from U.S. steel makers, they're delighted by this because they've been dealing with dumping of these products at much cheaper levels. But, I mean, you're also talking about unmanned aircraft systems, a lot of other goods that we weren't expecting with a 50% tariff. How do they use these loopholes to get cheap products into America and put U.S. makers at a disadvantage, Peter?
So in the beginning, before the Trump steel and aluminum tariffs back in the first term, back in 2018, they dumped steel and aluminum full stop. Okay, so when Donald Trump put the tariffs on, what they began to do, Brazil, Russia, China, all the big steel producers, is they start to take the steel or aluminum and turn it into downstream products. We call that derivative articles, right? So to evade the core tariff. So it's a strategic game. There's a lot of moves in the game. What we're doing is we're anticipating what they're doing. And so we basically do it that way in order to protect the industry. Remember, the goal here is to get 80% or higher capacity utilization in both our steel and aluminum industries, get new investment, particularly in the aluminum industry, which we lost several foundries during the Biden years, and that thing's on life support. We need to bring them back for national security purposes, and we can't be doing that if they get around the tariffs by just making the steel and aluminum, morphing them into derivative products. So that's what that's all about, Maria.
I gotcha. All right, let me move on to what's going on in terms of the weaponization. DNI Tulsi Gabbard is removing the security clearances of 37 current and former intelligence officials, saying that they manipulated intelligence, as we have just learned from all of this declassification. The list includes Joe Biden's former Assistant Secretary of State for Intelligence and Research, Brett Holmgren, former Principal Deputy Director of National Intelligence, Stephanie O'Sullivan. She's being accused of being involved in the 2016 Obama-era probe of collusion between Russia and President Trump, of course, which was a complete made-up story by Hillary Clinton's team. I want to get your take on this last 10 years of really scandals and efforts to take down President Trump. And when I spoke with Ed Martin over the weekend, he, of course, is the head of the weaponization unit at the DOJ. He said, Peter, it's a lot of the same people. Those same people who tried to do you in, okay, and sent you to prison, those people who came up with these lies about President Trump, they're still out there trying to take down President Trump, and it went from scandal to scandal, including January 6th. Watch this. Here's Ed Martin. Watch.
We know the birthday of the Russia hoax. It's December 8th, 2016, where the Obama administration, including Obama, said, don't put the truth out, lie. And then we had the Russia hoax that went on for 10 years. And every time they get in trouble, meaning the deep state and others, they throw another hoax out. And all we're doing at DOJ and all we're doing across the government is saying, get the truth out. When you're a liar, you lie, not just on one thing. When you're a cheater, you cheat, not just on one thing. When you're doing corruption, you generally don't just do it on one thing. So we have, that's our what we're asked to do as prosecutors. It's always the same. The same people on December 9th, 2016, in the Situation Room in Obama's White House are playing the same game all these years.
That's unbelievable. Peter, you lived it. It impacted your life severely. What can you say?
Well, I've got a blockbuster article coming out in Breitbart today that focuses on one person. It's FBI agent Walter Giardina. And he's the guy that arrested me at Reagan and perp walked my fiance, put me in handcuffs, leg irons.
Wow.
And he got fired, good for Kash Patel, a couple of weeks ago. The media's trying to make him a martyr. But here's what's so interesting. He's the thread that takes us across the entire arc of the attacks on Donald Trump and his associates from 2016 all the way right up to the day that guy got fired. And it starts with the Steele Dossier. I don't know if you know this, Maria, but this guy, Walter Giardina, was one of the FBI agents who greenlit the Steele Dossier after he read it and said, yeah, that's okay, go forward. And that, of course, begat Crossfire Hurricane. And at the same time, you had another operation. It was called Crimson River, renamed Red Masari. And that one falsely accused the Trump campaign of receiving $10 million from the Egyptian government. It was a total fraud. But Giardina was at the center of that. And then Giardina went to the Mueller report. He served on that. All of this, by the way, is because of the efforts of Senator Chuck Grassley, who's done a beautiful job getting these whistleblower documents.
Yeah.
And the whistleblowers allege that Giardina wiped his hard drive so that we couldn't get his records.
Wow.
He got an award for the Mueller people. I mean, it's crazy stuff. And then there was another thing, Maria, called the emoluments clause, where they went after Trump, saying he got money from foreign lobbyists and state governments illegally. But it was just a fishing expedition, and they've got whistleblowers allege that what Giardina did was simply that, a fishing expedition. And then the last one was the Arctic Frost, which was the fake electors one, which there was nothing fake about President Trump's efforts on that. But Giardina basically ensnared Jeff Clark, John Eastman, all of those folks, as well as Trump. So this guy is the seed. Read the Breitbart article when it comes out.
Is the accountability him getting fired, or are we going to see something more than that? I mean, they have destroyed people's lives.
I call for a full investigation of this guy and everybody else I name: Obama, Clinton, Comey, Page, Strzok, Brennan, Clapper, all the way down the line. And Ed Martin, that man is a bulldog, and he's going to get to the bottom. I love Ed Martin. He's going to get to the bottom of it.
Well, I mean, I enjoyed the conversation we had on Sunday, and he also made the point that January 6th and everything they did around January 6th was an effort to shut down any speech or conversation about 2020 and the election. So we're going to follow his work for sure, and yours as well. Peter, great to see you. Thank you, sir.
Always
Peter Navarro.
a pleasure, Maria.
All right, we'll see you soon.